Welcome to Sapere aude, Dare to Know. A podcast series by Michael Thallium for those people who are curious, eager to know, willing to learn new things and maybe things that are not that new. Today we'll speak about a life of music. And for that we have with us Marc André Hamelin. Welcome, Marc André.
Wonderful to be here.
Who is Marc André Hamelin?
Well, he is. Do I have to speak in the third person? I'm a pianist. I've been doing that all my life. I started lessons when I was 5. I had the good fortune of having a wonderful amateur pianist as a father. It wasn't his profession. He was a pharmacologist, actually. And so I was introduced to music early, even earlier than 5 years old, because I heard him playing, and he was playing records all the time. And music has been my life, really. I don't think I could do anything else really successfully, I confess.
Mm-hmm. Let me give some context to this conversation. I have to say, we are at Teatro Monumental, the Monumental Theatre in Madrid, which is the headquarters of the RTVE Synphony Orchestra. You were playing with this orchestra yesterday, last night, and today you will also play with this orchestra. And we hadn't met until 2 days ago at the rehearsals. And we had a little chat, and I told you that I've been following your career for many years already. And for me, that was a kind of dream come true to meet you in person. And I hadn't expected that I would end up sitting in front of you, talking and having this conversation, because sometimes you see most of the artists you admire are far to reach, but I'm very happy that you are here.
Yes, sometimes publicists place roadblocks and you can't get to them.
Exactly.
But I've always prided myself on being very approachable, and it's really to my advantage, I think.
I think so. I mean, I agree with you, because I've seen videos of you, not only playing, also talking, documentaries as well. So I had the feeling that you were very approachable, but you were far away from Spain, from Madrid. I don't know, is that the first time you've been playing in Madrid?
No, but I have not played very often. I've played most often in Spain, in Bilbao, actually, for the Philharmonic Society, and it's a tremendous series, and I always feel very welcome there. But I've played in other places, in Asturias, for example, Oviedo, and Valencia.
Right. Yeah. So let's start from the beginning. You mentioned already that you started playing piano when you were 5.
Yes.
And if you could go back, in time and look at Marc André Hamelin when he was, let's say, 15 years old, how was a day in the life of Marc André Hamelin when he was 15?
Okay. By that time I was I was in regular high school, but I was also having weekly piano lessons. I had for a number of years been enrolled at the Vincent d'Indy school in Montreal, which at the time really had the best reputation for music. And it's been somewhat superseded since, musical life in Montreal really has flourished since. Many universities offer very enviable musical education, and Montreal has attracted many people internationally. But back then, the music scene really was not what it is now, and I don't know whether I was really thinking of going anywhere else to pursue my studies and develop a career, but eventually I did. In any way, a day in the life of Marc André Hamelin. Well,
At 15, yeah.
yeah, 15. Well, it's at 16 years of age. I had just finished high school, and I enrolled in Vincent d'Indy. They were actually offering a pre-college degree. So that was when I really started to be bathed into music full time, because there were several classes that were entirely devoted to music. Harmony, counterpoint, analysis, music history, music literature, and so on. And that's really when I became truly happy, because before that, all the way from when I first went to school as a young kid, I had been sort of bullied and belittled because I was playing piano and I didn't like sports, and that of course was a big mark against me, and I was always sort of ridiculed. So finally, I was with people who did the same thing I did, and that was incredibly better for my self-esteem.
And if you compare a day in the life of Marc André Hamelin when he was 15 and a day now, today, what's the difference?
Well, no comparison, of course. I travel internationally like most of my colleagues, and I'm concentrated solely on doing the best I can, and discovering and perfecting, discovering and polishing, I guess, are the two main things. And of course, I have a family life as well, and I have a wonderful, wonderful wife, and she has 2 grown children and a grandchild, and as much as I like to travel and playing for audiences and discovering new audiences and new places, I still very much like to be home.
One of the questions that I've always asked myself when I meet people who have reached a high level of, let's say, perfection. I don't like the word perfection, but maybe...
No, it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist, but such a high level is, how can you manage to reach that top of the mountain, so to say, and have a family life at the same time?
It's difficult. It would be even more difficult in my case if I ever had children, which I don't. I can't imagine how my musicianship would have evolved if I also had to take care of rearing a child. I do not regret my decision, because I think it's allowed me to go farther. But I certainly have tremendous respect for those who do have children, have a family.
What things have you given up for music? Or do you feel you have given up many things just because of music?
No, not really. Not really. My life has been really quite fulfilling, on the whole. So I don't really have any regrets as far as that goes.
And you said at the beginning that your life is basically, you can't imagine your life without music. That's why we entitled this episode "A Life of Music." But when you look back, if you wouldn't have been a musician, what profession would have you done?
Well, I always say that the world of languages has always fascinated me, and maybe I would have done something in that realm, but otherwise it's very, very difficult to imagine. If I hadn't discovered my musical talent, or if my musical talent had not been discovered, then I don't really know what I would have done, except maybe dabbling in languages.
Who discovered your talent?
Well, it was really my father, because he saw that I was very, very, very interested and fascinated when he was playing, and that's even before I started lessons. And he just offered me to take lessons. He didn't force me. But I think it was his wish that one of his 2 children would have enough talent to pursue a musical career, because he had decided rather early on that it wasn't for him.
You have brothers and brother?
I have a slightly older sister who started piano lessons at the same time I did, but I was clearly the one who developed much faster. I mean, I was learning much faster, and she stuck it out for about 3 years, before giving up completely. She later took up the flute, and she got rather good, but seeing me develop so fast, was really discouraging for her.
I understand. And so let's go back to the times when you were 20. When did you finish your music studies and started a professional life as a musician?
At age 19, I went to the United States. I was offered a full scholarship at Temple University, and which at the time really did not have the greatest reputation as a music school, but I went there for the teacher, a man by the name of Harvey Wedeen, who I had met actually in Montreal. He came once a month at our school for master classes and private lessons. So a full scholarship was, of course, very motivating and enticing, inciting, I should say. So I've been in America ever since. This was Philadelphia, and in 2007 I moved to Boston, and I am still there. I met the person who has become my second wife. That's the reason I moved to Boston. So I earned in Philadelphia a bachelor's and a master's degree, and also started a doctoral work, but I quit after 3 years because my concerts were really getting
demanding.
Not demanding, but also numerous. So
right.
I really did not have time to finish the degree, and in a sense it wouldn't have been necessary because the point of doing a doctoral degree in this case would have been to get a teaching certification. But I had already been offered, because of winning a competition in America, 2 university jobs. So
interesting.
Which I had to turn down, of course. From the age of 26 on, I chose to pursue my own path and be done with music lessons.
Let me say, for those who don't know Marc André Hamelin, we've been speaking, and because our conversation, people might think that you come from Canada, which is actually where you come from Canada, but you live in the States.
Many people think I still live there.
Yeah, for instance, myself. And you are bilingual, French and English.
Yeah.
Are there any other languages? Because you mentioned that you like languages. Any other languages you speak?
If I'd been a little less lazy, I could have learned more. But, inevitably, when you go to certain countries so often, for Germany, for instance, the language really gets in your ear. I can pronounce German very well. I can read it. But I can't really converse except for maybe ordering in restaurants or asking for for very simple things.
Right. And where do you feel more at home, Canada or the States?
Well, the States is really my home. It's been for 45 years, so naturally that's where I feel most at ease. But I always enjoy going to Canada. I was there twice already in the last few weeks, the last 3 weeks. So it feels maybe a little bit like a second home, perhaps. But I almost anywhere I go, I feel welcome. On the other hand, so I guess you could say I feel like I have lots of homes.
Right. When you play at a concert, those moments before the concert, do you have any rituals you do? Because I know a lot of artists, and quite a lot of them, they have certain rituals they do, and it's like kind of sacred part of the performance.
One thing I have avoided over the years is to have superstitions.
Right.
Because these can really get in the way and give you the illusion that if a little unrelated thing doesn't go well, then your performance is going to be a disaster. No, I try to be as rational as possible. I simply follow a good regimen of trying to sleep as much as I can, which doesn't happen all that often, actually. And eating at a certain time, I think, is very important. I don't tend to take a nap the day of or the afternoon of the concert or whatever. I just try to be well slept, and that's enough in that respect. And I try to eat something like 3 or 4 hours before performance, so that my stomach isn't busy with digesting food and my blood is away from my brain. You know? So, and that's about it, really. I try not to do too much so that I can save my energies for what's really important that evening, or in the afternoon, or whatever, whenever the concert is. And nothing else, really. Nothing else.
2 days ago, when we first met, I told you off the record what I thought about you, and now, taking the advantage that we are recording and it can stay forever, I would like to repeat those words.
Well, your listeners won't see me blush.
Well, that's a good point. But because I really, first of all, because I really believe it deep inside me, I believe this. Most people who know you as a pianist, and I said to you that, of course, you are a great pianist, out of this planet. But for me, what really stands out from you is you as a musician. You are a musician. You have a knowledge and understanding of music that goes far beyond just performing. I can tell because I have seen you play music and I've listened to your own compositions because you are a composer of your own. For those who are listening now and never happened to listen to Marc André Hamelin's 12 etudes, they don't know, or you don't know what you are missing, because they are jewels, and each and every one of these etudes are a masterpiece. That's what I have to say. You didn't blush.
Well, that's very, very nice to hear. Those etudes, I'm proud of them, but they also happen to be really quite difficult.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so not many people play them. But I'm happy to say that some young people who are especially enterprising, will tackle them. Although it seems that, if I can open a parenthesis here, the degree of pianistic proficiency in the last couple of decades really has blossomed. It's exploded, really. It seems like some young people can play absolutely anything. It seems like they all learned the Rachmaninoff Third Concerto while still in their mother's belly. Well, I'm very glad that you appreciate these pieces so much. I think I've written more playable things in the
true, but
more recently.
One of them, I have to say, I know people who know you already. For them, that's like nothing new. Mm-hmm. But for those who don't know you, one thing that I would also like to say is that you have a wide repertoire. You've played everything. But one of the characteristics of your profession as a career as a musician is that you have discovered a lot of new music, which was in the end not that new. It's music that hadn't been played. I have to say, through you, I happen to know Medtner's piano concertos.
Yes.
Godowsky, Ornstein, the music of Leo Ornstein.
Yeah.
Leo Ornstein. So a lot of music that was new to me, but it was written over 100 years. Mm-hmm. And it was you the first one to play. How did you get into that, let's say, attitude or mood of discovering things or recording new things?
Well, that we have to go back to a fundamental element of my personality, I guess you could call it, is that I've always been very, very curious. And I had the good fortune, because of my father partly, and because of the recordings that he played at home, you know, he had a good record collection, of knowing a good chunk of the standard repertoire very, very early in life. So it was only natural that after a while, I started looking left and right, and away from the center. Around the time I was maybe 9, 10 years old, he subscribed to a magazine called the Piano Quarterly, which later became Piano and Keyboard. It's not published anymore. But that magazine had always very interesting articles on piano and piano music and pianists. But they also had reviews of new scores, new publications, from beginner's music to up to advanced and very contemporary looking things. And they always reproduced the first page of everything that was reviewed in miniature. So that was very interesting to me, because it allowed me to find out that there was something other than Bach, Beethoven, and Mozart, and Chopin, and these. So, also there was a lot of contemporary music with very strange notation sometimes. And I was, besides being attracted to whatever wasn't common, I also had a great attraction to something that things that were strange and weird and wonderful. So as soon as I had a little pocket money, when I was maybe, I don't know, 13 or 14, I started buying records of very contemporary music, you know, Stockhausen and Boulez and Cage and Xenakis and people like that. And I just lapped it all up. It was only later, some years later, that my focus shifted a little bit. I mean, I still listened to avant-garde things, and I still do actually today even. But my focus started to shift a little bit towards the turn of the century, from the 19th to the 20th, you know, because it's a tremendous period in music history. It seems like the development of harmony at that point took a really exponential curve, and started of course evolving very rapidly towards atonality. I think it really started with Liszt and Wagner, and then just things took giant steps. You know, it always seemed like baby steps, you know, through music history, even though there were very interesting developments. But there was this explosion around the turn of the century, which really fascinates me and continues to fascinate me. The literature of music is really infinite. And if you just look at the piano literature, there's always something to be discovered. It seems like it's a horn of plenty, you know. It's just any amount of music could come out of it magically, you know, and there would never be an end to the flow. You know? Yeah. It really almost seems to be true. So we have such a ridiculously short time on this earth, comparatively, you know.
Yeah.
I would love to have more time to discover more of it, you know, but you just have to use whatever time you have as well as possible, you know. And the way I choose repertoire, I think at the beginning, I wasn't always as discriminate as I am now, because I really picked things to learn and to play and to record that I was enthusiastic about. But these days, well, over time, really, I started thinking much more about the audience, which is really what this is all about. I mean, yeah. if you're going to present something in concert, you don't just want to please yourself. I mean, ultimately, it's the audience that's important. I mean, my prime reason for being on stage is really to share,
Right.
and to communicate my enthusiasm to an audience, and hoping that they will feel the same about whatever work I perform than as I do.
You've mentioned a couple of minutes ago that there are a lot of, young pianists or musicians are blossoming everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a look and you compare the times you started and until these days today, I'm not only talking about music, about general education. Do you see a decrease on the general education, so to say, or the general knowledge of about culture of people? Or you are enthusiastic and positive and think people know more today than 50 years or 60 years ago?
You mean young people, especially, or
And
music students, or
no, not just music students. Generally speaking,
well,
the world, or the same. You live in the States, maybe.
Well, I mean, we do have a special situation these days. You know,
That's why I'm asking you.
There's been a very, very unfortunate election a month ago, and if cuts to the Department of Education are instated, then I am not very hopeful for the future. I'm just hopeful that people will want to educate themselves and sort of override, you know, the difficulties that they might encounter, you know, with because of this lack of funding. But I don't hold my hopes up too much. I mean, we are quickly heading towards disaster. I mean, we've been saying that for the whole century, but here I think it's happening exponentially, just because of one reprehensible individual, or maybe two.
Yeah. How was?
I'm not naming names.
Yeah, I think we all understand. Well, you know, this is interesting. We all, as I said, we all understand. In this context, I don't know who will be the final listener of this podcast. Maybe in 10 years' time, the context you and me are managing has nothing to do with the context in 10 years. But talking about this, I mean, going deep into this education issue, do you fear artificial intelligence?
Yes.
Why?
For its evils, not for its good. Well, as a small example, you only have to look at students who have to write essays. How many of them do not use artificial intelligence? I mean, I don't have statistics, but I can only imagine that it's very tempting to have a computer do the work for you.
Exactly. And this will make us stupid, or more stupid than we are now.
Yeah. So I hope that there's not a general entropy. I mean, some of it might be inevitable in the long run, but I hope that at least part of the population will have enough sense to sort of catch themselves and saying, "Wait a minute, I'm going the easy road here, and this is not the way to go."
I don't fear artificial intelligence, but I do fear the consequences of artificial intelligence, especially in young people now, children who are now and 5, 10 years.
Yes, and people who don't know anything else.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think my feeling is that there will always be a minority of people in the world that would try to cultivate themselves and playing music, learning how to play an instrument. I'm not very positive on that. I mean, I'm not very hopeful.
Hopeful,
hopeful on that. but that would be a little minority, because the mass of people in the world will live just on entertainment created by machines. I have no doubts about it.
Mm-hmm.
This minority is what we have to aim at, because
Yeah.
the other thing is unstoppable. That's what I think. Yeah. Maybe I'm too pessimistic, but that's my feeling. Sure. It's unstoppable. But I don't fear artificial intelligence, because why do you write a book? Why do you play Chopin or Bach? Why do you play the Goldberg variations? If you have, let's say, an artificial intelligence or a machine that does this for you, where's the point? I think we as human beings, we need to challenge ourselves. And it doesn't matter if it's an instrument, or if you write, or if you paint. To do something artistic, I think it's something that gets you somewhere else, which is not just Earth. Some months ago, I read a text by Abraham Flexner from 1939. He wrote about I forgot the title now, but it's the use of useless things, or things that are useless but they are useful, very useful. And there is a very good book. I don't know the translation into English, how it was translated by Nunzio Ordine. He's an Italian philosopher, talking about the usefulness of useless things or something. I don't know what the title in English is. And he speaks and he says that the very moment we as human beings stop having the love for doing useless things, playing music, writing a poem, painting we will stop being human beings. We will be something else, a different species. What are your feelings about it?
I don't think it could completely stop, because if you have an urge to paint, for example, some people are born with it.
Yeah.
They want to represent what they see, and I can't imagine a system where people will lose their appeal, their innate appeal to do that. I've never thought of that, though, but to me it seems like an impossibility that it would happen.
No, there will always be people. There will always be people like that, but still, I think that would be a minority, and it's always been like this. Mm-hmm. If you look back, let's think of the great minds of art, not only music. I was thinking about Johann Sebastian Bach. How the hell could he write that amount of music and so beautifully written? What was his...
and he had a large family.
And he had a large family. So that's very interesting. Or take any good writer, any good artist.
Yeah.
They do things, and what drives them? I have no clue. But
yeah. I won't attempt to answer that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I would very much like people in the future who live day to day, with the latest technology, AI as an example, of course, not to forget, or at least to know, that there were such things in the past as rotary phones and typewriters.
Yes.
I have a interesting anecdote. My wife is a radio host and producer, and sometimes, on occasion, when there was a tour of people coming in to visit the station, she would lead them and show them various things. And she was the tour was in her little studio, and it was youngish children, I guess. This is about maybe 15 years ago. And she was showing all kinds of, the appliances in there and the equipment. And one of them said, "What's that over there?" It was a typewriter. So
Talking
enough
ab-
said.
talking
Enough
ab-
said.
Because nowadays we all type on our computers. But talking about this, I'm going to tell you also an anecdote. Handwriting.
Oh,
We
yes.
hardly handwrite nowadays.
Yeah. And the quality of handwriting for that reason has really gone down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I have the experience that when you handwrite, you write differently with that when you type. I have
You mean the thought process?
the thought process, and also what you write is different. At least in my case.
Yeah.
And here goes the anecdote. I know a Spanish writer, Dativo Donate. He's a guy who still today writes with feathers.
Oh my God!
And he makes the ink, his own ink.
Wow.
And he told me once, not long ago, 6 months ago or so, if you take the writings of the 17th century and the 16th century and the 15th century, for instance, there's a famous book here in Spain, Don Quixote, by Miguel de Cervantes.
Yeah.
He said to me, later on I will show you because I have the pictures of it. He started writing and he said, you know why the paragraphs in that time were that way? I have the theory, he said to me, that it was because of the ink. Because if you just put the feather, the tip of the feather in the ink and you start writing, it would last until the paragraph ends. And he said, that's why the beginning of a Don Quixote is like this. And he wrote for me with a feather, and almost by the end of the paragraph, the ink was run off, gone. So
you think that the longevity of the ink on the pen dictated the length of the paragraphs?
Exactly. That's what he said. And I tend to agree with that because he said, we are lazy. You don't want to move your hand and put ink again. Just you want to finish it up and then you start again. And that's why some of the sentences were so long. Okay. Because you want to take advantage of the ink you have.
Of course.
What I mean is that there are certain things that are, let's say, manual. In your case, playing piano. There's nothing more manual than playing the piano.
Of course.
That if you don't train that, it's a human ability that would be lost. And I think everyone should learn how to play an instrument, not to become a professional musician.
Just to be acquainted with the process.
Exactly.
Yes.
Because music is processed in the brain in a different way from the rest of information.
I certainly believe that about composing for interpreters.
Right.
Yeah. And yeah, this opens up another subject, really. I don't want to put you off track or
please,
anything.
go.
But I think the benefits of composition are really quite tremendous for people who are interpreters, musicians, for many reasons. One of them is that it helps you feel closer creatively to the works that you're performing, and it puts you a little more. You get one step closer to the composer whose works you were performing, and what the process was of putting pen to paper, and the miraculous process of translating an intangible thought into a system of notation. Because that in itself is really quite arduous, and some composers really agonized over that. The system of notation is really quite imperfect in translating emotion.
Exactly, because in the end, that's what it comes up down.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost purely just a system of proportions and not much else. And we tend to laugh sometimes when some composers will indicate performance directions which are not allegro andante, presto, or whatever, and be more specific, you know. Yeah. But anything helps, you know. one example that comes to mind was that the Australian composer Percy Grainger was very, very specific, and he used English instead of Italian, and it often makes people laugh. You know, in one of his choral works, he says in a number of instances, you know, to the singers, "Don't tire yourself over this. Keep fresh for what's to come." And a little later, he says, "Now's your time to sing up." So that's much more evocative than incalzando or allegro or whatever, you know, or cantabile, because in too many cases, with composers who just use routine indications, you really have to read between the lines to figure out what they wanted. So I think learning to compose, and I'm not talking about becoming a composer. It's just
I understand. I see your point.
Just knowing what the process is of putting thoughts to paper can help you also make better decisions interpretively.
Was that what led you to composing?
No. I started scratching nonsense onto music paper right after I started music lessons when I was 5, because I saw. I mean, my dad had some rather formidable scores around formidable looking scores of Liszt's music, for example, and to a curious person like me, you know, a curious kid like me, it was wow. So I wanted to do the same thing, of course. So I started scribbling things that really didn't make any sense, but the will was there. Of course, I wasn't thinking about being heard or in any of that being played. It was just fun. Later, of course, much later, this kind of endeavor became more serious. But it wasn't until my late teens that I wrote anything that anybody would want to listen to.
And to play, to play.
But to play, yeah, that's.
I have to say, your etude is true. They are a real challenge because you have to have a huge technique to play them, but they are so wonderful that I hope there are lots of pianists who dare to play them because it's.
Well, at that time, you know, I was really thinking about writing music. And the way I thought pianistically, excuse me, what was a little beyond, I think, what is normal. And even, I mean, these pieces gave me trouble too. I mean, I really thought too big, as just like you fill up your plate too much at the cafeteria, you know, at the restaurant, you know, and you can't eat everything that you have on your plate. It was the same thing. Later, I think, and it took me a while really to realize that I was overdoing it pianistically. I accumulated more experience, which allowed me to express the same things while being more pianistically approachable.
I once read somewhere in a book an anecdote talking about this thing about putting emotions into paper. The son of Shostakovich, when he was little, he wrote music, and Shostakovich himself would play that music exactly as it was written, which meant that his child would say, that doesn't sound very good, so that's what you wrote. So he wouldn't try to fake it. Yep. And I think it was a book written by the son of Shostakovich, and he said that taught him a lesson, that you really have to know how to express yourself when you write.
Yes.
So, and that's a good anecdote. And, well, everything has a beginning and an end, and we it's time for us to finish. There's a section that is always the same for all of the guests. 2 questions and a request. Here is the first question, because I would love to keep talking to you for a long time.
I thought we were just getting started.
Yeah, okay. We will extend it a bit, but first question that is for all of the guests. This is the 86th episode of the series Sapere aude, so 86 people have come through those episodes. and all of them answer this question. If you would have to recommend a book to read, or everybody should read before dying, which book would you say?
That's really putting me on the spot. Because it could be fiction, non-fiction.
Anything.
Instructional.
What you feel for you is a good recommendation.
Long silence.
Mm-hmm. That means thinking.
Even longer silence. Second question? We might come back to the first.
Well, we will come back to the first. Before I go to the second question, I have a little surprise for you. And then I'll ask you the second question.
Right.
The surprise is a book. 2 days ago, you asked me whether there was in Madrid a shop where you could get music sheet, or sheet music,
Yes.
second-hand and
Yes.
used. And I told you outside Madrid, there are certain places you can do that. You can do that. But yesterday, I happened to find a bookshop. It's not a score, I have to say, but I will explain to you now. It's very close to the theater we are now.
Yes.
It's a second-hand book shop where you find books, old books. And I found this, and I said, this is for Marc André Hamelin for sure. Let me take it out. It's an old book. It's written in French, and that's for you. You didn't expect that, I guess.
No, but I have it.
Oh, you have it. Oh, my God.
It was in my father's collection.
Really?
Yes.
Well, that's for you.
Well,
that's my present for you.
This copy is in much better shape.
Oh, right.
Oh,
So,
yes.
It's a book on Albanies by Gabriel Laplan.
Yes, it's very good, actually. Because, at the time I was working on Iberia,
Yes.
which I recorded about 20 years ago. I certainly
So
consulted
it was here, very close to the theater we are sitting.
Is it Gulliver?
Gulliver, exactly. Gulliver in Spanish.
I was there a couple of days ago.
I found it.
I see. I didn't see it there.
Yeah.
Maybe you bought it already. I don't know.
No, I bought it yesterday.
Well, you have to inscribe it for me.
Okay, I will.
Please.
So that was. I will do it later on. Let's go to the second question, and then we come back to the first question. Okay. Second question: if you would ever have to recommend some music someone has to listen to before dying, which music would you say?
Oh my God!
You wanted it.
Wow. You're asking me to mention one, to single out one specific work at the expense of the other, all of the other amazing works in the literature. I mean, I could say that very little gives me as much pleasure in performance as Schubert's Last Sonata, which would be something certainly. But there are so many more. I mean, I don't think this Schubert Sonata would be a bad choice at all.
Right. Yeah. So let's go back to the first question about the book you would recommend.
Well, I haven't read much fiction lately, so that's sort of an impediment, I guess. I would not mention something like the Bible, which a lot of people would expect me to, because I'm not particularly religious, and I don't happen to think that much of it is very authentic. But let's leave that aside. To me, the answer is impossible.
Okay.
With so many creative minds who've ever lived, again, it would be unfair, I think, to mention one at the expense of anything else. And believe me, I would like to,
No worries. And before I go for the request, I would also like to mention, especially for those people who still don't know who Marc André Hamelin is as a pianist. Last night, I witnessed a wonderful concert. I know, because you told me, you artists believe you can always play better or improve your performance, but I can tell last night's performance was absolutely great. And I will summarize your performance of the piano concerto by George Gascoigne that you play with the RTVE Orchestra in Madrid, by the comment of a woman I was talking to. Actually, her name is Ana Borrego. She's the coordinator of the orchestra. And she was sitting at the amphitheater, on the top part of the theater. And I came to her and I said, this pianist is absolutely fantastic. And she said to me, did you see how he sat down just when he started? And you look at his hand, it seemed that he wasn't playing. And that's what, when someone looks at you, it's like there's no effort. And your musicians, you have to, for instance, George Gascoigne concerto is difficult and virtuosistic too. But most people, I'd say, know you because of your prowess. You say prowess?
Prowess, yeah.
Prowess as a virtuoso. You have your, excellent technique, which is very enticing, so to say. But as I said before, what I really appreciate in you is your musicianship. You play an encore last night that was the opposite to virtuosity, and it was all about musicality.
Well, I always say jokingly that I would be happy for the rest of my life just to play slow movements.
Yeah, and it was absolutely amazing. I don't know if you could feel the silence of the audience.
Oh, yes. Because that feeds us.
Exactly. Yeah. And when you were playing that piece, there was total silence. And maybe sometimes I wonder, what would be people thinking? What are people thinking when they're listening? Because there are lots of heads, minds listening to the same kind of music, but maybe perceiving something completely different.
Well, I will answer to you simply by saying that I don't go on stage to exhibit myself.
Yeah.
I as I said before, I go on stage to share the miracle of human creativity. And I love to share my discoveries. I love to share hopefully new ways of looking at the more standard repertoire. And I just try to be as authentic to the composer and to myself as I can.
Mm-hmm. And let me tell you that I can tell that we just met 2 days ago, and I think I've known you more because of this conversation than any other thing. So it's a very short period of time in our lives that we are sharing, and maybe we don't see each other again. You never know. But you let me say that for the record. You are a great musician, but I have the feeling that you are also a great person. That's my feeling.
Ask others. Don't ask me.
But and you are, as you said, approachable, which sometimes in the world of arts there are too many divas, and you are completely the opposite, as far as I can tell.
Well, that's very nice to hear. Thank you.
And now we go for the request. Imagine that in 500 years, 1,000 years, 100 years, who knows, someone listens to this recording and can listen to your voice in February 2025 in Madrid. If you have a message, what message would you like to to live for that eventual listener, thinking or taking for granted that he would understand the language we are speaking now.
Yes, that's a prime consideration, isn't it?
You use a word consideration. Later on I will tell you something about consideration.
Okay. Oh, well, who is to say what the world is going to be like, or whether there's even going to be a world, considering what's happening right now as we speak? I would certainly hope that the art of music will have even survived. I mean, if you look at people's basic nature, I mean, for me, it's hard to believe that it would ever disappear.
Uh-huh.
But of course, you never know what can happen. If ways of listening to music or the music itself has been obliterated in some way, I don't know, then it would make you. I guess it would make the listener long for that kind of for that state of things. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Strange but interesting question.
And now you said the word consideration, and there are two words I love: conversation and consideration. Considerate, and well, you don't have that word, that verb in English, converse. I mean, to have in a conversation.
Sure.
But etymologically, they have a very nice meaning. Conversation, verse, to make verses together.
Oh.
Consideration, sideris in Greek, stars, to look at the stars together. When you are considering and you have a conversation, you are sharing what is more intimate from the human being, words and dreams, looking at the stars far away to try to challenge yourself and go far beyond your reality. That's what I think.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
So, Marc André, thank you very much for taking part in Sapere aude. As I said at the beginning, for me it's a dream come true. And I'm very happy to, once in my life, having been able to talk to an artist and a person I admire. Thank you very much.
Thank you.